working or not?
It is now.
Oh, there it is. It's on, so it's working. All right. Okay, we get started. Welcome to the September 11th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission. Ms. Robertson, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Mr. Kirby-Stannis,
Here.
Mr. Khan,
Here.
Mr. McPartlin,
Here.
Mr. Giacomo,
Here.
Ms. Gold,
Present.
Ms. Strang,
Here.
and Mr. Drescher.
Here.
Yep, and Chairman Wall is here also. All right, no, thank you. All right, so what we have up first is the approval of the minutes from the August 28th, 2023 meeting that were included in your packet. I have a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. McPartlin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gold. Any discussion, changes, comments on the minutes? I have none. Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from August 28th, 2023, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'll abstain because I didn't.
Yep, one abstention. Thank you, Mr. Kirby-Stannis. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we'll listen to what you have to say. So privilege of the floor is open. And one comment that I have is that let's do a better job with microphones. All of us, make sure we pull them forward, including myself, and speak clearly. And if anybody wants to speak, make sure you use the microphone. It makes it a lot easier for the recording so that the minutes can be handled easier. And it also is better for the recording and for the public hearing what we have to say. So privilege of the floor is open. Do we have anybody online, Laura, or any communications?
I didn't receive anything electronically.
Okay, seeing no one here and having no one online or any emails to read, we'll close privilege of the floor. We have no unfinished business. We'll move to new business. Under new business, we have a couple of resolutions tonight, actions tonight. First one being Resolution 2023-19, a resolution for site plan approval for a 55-unit apartment building containing 2,000 square feet of mixed-use commercial space and 3,000 square feet commercial space outbuilding at 2837 Aqueduct Road, and that's Rivers Ledge. The resolution is posted as always, but I'm going to summarize the conditions, so please bear with me. As you know, it's pretty lengthy, but I think it's important that we do that. All right. Resolved that this planning board does hereby grant to the Rivers Ledge of Niskayuna Planned Unit Development Phase 2 site plan approval with the following conditions. 1, this resolution shall be incorporated in any deed of sale for this planned unit development, and the conditions of this resolution shall be binding on the applicant, the owner, if different than the applicant, their successors, assigns, or transferees. 2, the planned unit development cannot return to the town board for final PUD approval until both Phase 1 and Phase 2 are completed. 3, the following general site plan improvements and requirements for Phase 2 of Rivers Ledge and Niskayuna were required via Planning Board Resolution 2017-30, 2018-19, and 2021-31. I'm not going to read those conditions. They were included in the original approval and are available online. 4, prior to site disturbance, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the town of Niskayuna and TDE and shall address any concerns raised by the town. 5, prior to the pre-construction meeting, the developer shall address the following. A, the developer shall address all necessary permits from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. B, the developer shall address all necessary permits from the Army Corps of Engineers for wetlands disturbance and mitigation for Phase 2. C, the applicant will be required to provide parkland fees of $27,500 to the town of Niskayuna. That's 55 units times 500, as agreed upon in Town Board Resolution 2016-218. D, the applicant will be required to provide sewer trunk fees of $27,500 to the town of Niskayuna. That's 55 again times 500, as agreed upon in Town Board Resolution number 2016-18. The applicant will be required to provide water trunk fees of $27,500 to the town of Niskayuna. That's 55 units times $500, as agreed upon in Town Board Resolution number 2016-18. Any engineering and drainage concerns will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering. G, any questions or concerns raised by the town designated engineer will be addressed by the applicant in a formal letter to the town. H, any minor changes to the final site plans will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planning department, including 1, adding a pickup drop-off area for residents by the corridor entrances to the apartment units. 2, adding setback dimensions to the site plan drawings. And 3, exploring pedestrian scale lighting along the bike path. The applicant shall submit a site development permit application and fee. 6, prior to site disturbance, the Phase 2 site plan map shall be modified to reflect agreed-upon decisions of the pre-construction meetings, if any, and distributed as required to the town and all involved contractors. Final site plan shall be submitted to the town labeled for construction. 7, prior to site disturbance, confirmation by the applicant from the Department of Public Works that material specifications and site details, including road and utility plan profiles, meet town standards. 8, prior to site disturbance, applicant will submit a final tree planting and landscaping plan to the town planning department for review and approval by the tree council. Under 8A, native species should be used wherever possible, with attention to landscaping species that provide food and habitat to surrounding wildlife. B, the developer should go to great lengths to retain any existing native woody vegetation that has a reasonable chance for survival after development, especially the white pine trees and oaks along the limits of clearing. And C, there should be thick vegetative buffers along the Mohawk Hudson Hike Trail and along the property lines. Condition number 9, prior to site disturbance, the applicant must secure any necessary approvals from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the Schenectady County Department of Health. 10, wetland boundaries shall be recorded and shown on any plat plan of the building lot containing the wetlands. Wetlands may not be disturbed, drained, or physically altered in any way without first contacting the Army Corps of Engineers. Additionally, the town of Niskuna requires that no land can be disturbed within a 25-foot buffer from the boundary of the wetland. 11, should the garage floor elevations for individual buildings deviate by more than 6 inches from the elevations approved for construction by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission or the Building Department, then revised grading plan shall be submitted immediately to the town's engineering office for their review and approval. Depending on the impact to driveway slopes or drainage features such as swales and berms, a revised grading plan may need to extend into the full site plan grading plan to ensure impacts to adjacent buildings and lots are accounted for. 12, the applicant shall not receive a certificate of occupancy for any building in a Rivers Ledge PUD until such time that the public parking and public infrastructure is completed and accepted by the town, or security deposit to the town and public works department is given to the town to cover the full cost of improvements. 13, prior to public improvements acceptance, the applicant shall provide all deeds and easements to the town attorney for their review and approval. All conveyances shall be approved by the town attorney and filed in the Schenectady County Recorder's Office at the applicant's expense. 14, if applicable, the applicant will submit to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation a notice of intent for stormwater discharge associated with construction activity under state pollutant discharge elimination system, general permit number GP 015002. The applicant will provide a copy of the permit to the town prior to site disturbance. In accordance with Chapter 1A of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance of the town of Niskuna, the applicant shall put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering and shall remain in place until such time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. 16, any HVAC heating equipment is required to be screened and monitored for visual and noise impacts to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. 17, the applicant must additionally comply with any other requirements of the PUD prior to the board's acceptance of the final PUD, including but not limited to A, repairing the damaged lawn on Aqueduct Road, B, completing the installation of the on-site multi-use path and offset sidewalk improvements, C, installing the water pressure reducing valve on Balltown Road, and D, combining the 3 separate parcels into a single lot on south side of the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. That was easy. Can I have a motion for approval? That would be either Mr. Khan or Mr. Lafon.
So move to adopt.
And a second.
Seconded.
So approved for adoption by Mr. Lafon and seconded by Mr. Khan, and we can have some discussion.
I do have one question, Laura, concerning the CAC recommendation number 3. So it cites clearly, as we know, that the Army Corps of Engineers mitigation is at the Maple Avenue Animal Shelter. But the sentence, it says all changes to existing drainage patterns should accommodate the increase in rainfall intensity that comes with the warming climate. These are the draining patterns where? At the Mohawk Maple Avenue Animal Shelter?
So that's in the whereases that you're referring to, right? And that was their
Yeah,
findings?
it's on page 2 in a whereas number 3.
Yeah.
The CAC recommendation.
Right. They're actually talking about on-site. They were reviewing that the applicant is moving the stream, which they do mark as a significant change to the environment. And so they just wanted to make sure that moving the stream accounts for the flow, and that Brett also understands that the flow could theoretically increase with the increase in storms that we've seen. So just make sure that the capacity is there when the stream is rerouted on the site.
Right, so just to restate, all calculations are pertaining to the flow at the Aqueduct Road property,
Correct.
all right? Not anything at the
Yeah.
Maple Avenue.
Right. We're not even
Animal
looking at the plans. for
Right,
the
I
development.
understood.
Yeah.
It just, I just wanted to make that clear. I think it could have been made a little bit more explicit, but I think the default reading does suggest that, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khan.
We could just add all changes to existing drainage patterns on site, just for future. So the second, all changes to existing draining patterns on site should accommodate the increasing rainfall intensity, or just leave it the way it is.
I'm okay leaving it the way it is,
Okay.
as long as we all understand that we're still talking about the flow and calculations and site being
Yeah, we're talking
Aqueduct,
about Rivers Ledge.
not,
Yep.
not the place where the mitigation is going to happen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khan. Anybody else? Comments or concerns? Lori, you had some, I know there's been some late submittals that we haven't seen that might close out some of these conditions.
Yeah.
Laura can talk about those.
I'm gonna just switch the document really quickly. The applicant did call me. Brett is here representing the applicant. I talked to Chuck Buffundi earlier today. I went through the different conditions that were on site, and Brett was able to update the plan with some of it. Brett, feel free to hop up and share.
Chuck wants to send his apologies for not being able to be here. He had a conflicting meeting in Half Moon this evening, so you get the B team tonight. But yeah, Chuck called me about 1 o'clock today. I think he'd spoke with Laura. One of the things that we did was adding, and it's gone.
Yeah, sorry.
The setback dimensions to the garages, which 11.7 feet on the what would be on the west side, or 11.2 feet on the west side to the face of the garage, and then I think it's 6.1 feet on the east side to the face of the garage. If we zoom up, it's either 6.1 or 6.
Yes.
Yeah, 6.1. We also did add a drop-off zone in the front of the building for loading zone with a signage for short-term, 10-minute max or 15-minute max for loading and unloading of vehicles, so that you've got immediate access into the building. We did look at doing it on the back. However, if it's back there, I don't want to impede if there's an emergency required, I don't want to impede emergency vehicles, and it is kind of tight back there for emergency vehicles. We don't want to get into a situation where we have cars parked back there and an emergency vehicle trying to get around the rear of the building. I know one of the CAC's comments was if the wetlands are going to be deed restricted, the remaining wetlands on the site are being deed restricted. That's part of the permit requirements. The other item was adding the sidewalk on the next page, I believe, that showed the sidewalk going down. And I think that's the sidewalk you were referring to in that comment letter. If it's not, Laura, we'll make sure that we get that up. It's not. Okay, because that's what was shown on the original CAD files that I had. And I had a feeling it wasn't. So we'll just have to get with you and make sure that what was agreed upon in that original document is the correct location and distance of that sidewalk. But they're committed to doing that work as part of the PUD. And then the one thing we did show is we mixed up a little bit, and I know, Laura, you had a subsequent comment with the species and trees along the rear of the garage. We spaced them out a little bit further. Instead of the 8-foot spacing, we spaced them out to 16-foot spacing with a slight offset. We have a mixture of 3 species back there. I don't know what, I didn't really get into the CAC comments. I was just trying to get this into your hands as soon as possible. So.
Yeah, thank you. I think the CAC just wanted to see not necessarily a staggering of the Norway spruces, but like clumping with different species.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was written down, but they specifically were saying that shade is going to be a premium. They're trying to provide shade. Actually, the planning board's been trying to provide shade on Union Street for people walking on the sidewalks. The CAC was concerned that in this area, there's not going to be a lot of shade for a while, but they'd like to see that it be big trees that eventually can overhang the bike path and provide shade in that
Okay.
area.
We can certainly look at doing that and get with the landscape architect on what they feel would be best.
Yeah.
And Chuck wanted me to convey to you, if you have any concerns as always, he's going to work with this town and work with this board to make sure that the product that you're happy with it is that they're not the type that would just kind of decide to cram something down your throat. They're going to work with you on, the species and the plantings and all that stuff. But he wanted to make sure that we convey that to you tonight.
Right. I think the conditions, are pretty
conditions
broad,
are
so
pretty
they're
broad.
covered there. So I know that Laura and planning or engineering will be able to handle any of these open items and close them out appropriately.
So, all right.
And then, so the one thing that I just wanted to add was that this is showing the building as being 6.1 feet from the lot line. That is okay. Under the PUD, we looked at the rec building being just about this close before. And the one thing was when we were looking at the rec building being this close, we did put in some whereases in the planning board resolution that stated like why the planning board was allowing it to be that close. Chairman Walsh and I just were talking earlier. If it was uncovered parking spots, they would allow to be 5 feet. And actually, because it's a PUD, these parking spaces aren't required to be covered, but we wanted them to be covered because it's an amenity for a senior building. So I just wanted to put it on the record. It's my opinion that in this case, it being 6.1 feet is a better outcome because the alternative is probably just not having the covered spaces, and it's an amenity that we would want to see there. And if we were to shift the building south, it would put the uncovered parking spaces closer to Aqueduct Road.
It sounds like from emergency standpoint, it would potentially shorten up the width of the drive around also.
That's correct.
And plus, like you stated, Laura, the PUD allows that flexibility.
It does.
So there's no like area variance or anything required.
Yeah.
So,
I just wanted it to be on the record so that it's not necessarily precedent setting. I think we would allow the parking lot there normally, but because we wanted the extra mile with the covered spaces, because it's a senior building, that does make something that wouldn't normally be allowed in our code, but in this case, I think it's a positive outcome.
I concur with that. Any other questions, comments at all?
I'll just comment, I'm still very disappointed that we've got the garages the way we have them instead of under the building, which would best serve the intended population of this building. But I think this is a workable compromise. Not ideal, but I think it's workable. And therefore, I agree with everything Ms. Robertson has said.
I appreciate the sport's flexibility with that because with the changing economy and the construction costs being what they are, it was making the project actually making it so it wouldn't even be constructible with the underground parking. And I appreciate this board, working with us to do the garages.
Yeah, to me, not having covered garage space for the residents would be a deal breaker for me.
No, understood.
So I appreciate the compromise at least.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Robertson, please call the roll.
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Scrubitanis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Mr. Diarpino,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
and Chairman Walsh.
Aye. The resolution is adopted. Thank you, and please pass our thanks on to the Louise companies and
Absolutely.
Mr. Pafunde for their hard work. We appreciate the investment in our community.
And I'm
Yeah.
certain they would thank you as well for all your input and work to get this done. So
Yeah.
we really do appreciate it. And I appreciate your time this evening.
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Brett, before you go,
Yes.
the engineering department asked me to ask you guys to look into chlorinating the water line so that it could be deeded over to the town.
I will talk to Chuck about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right. That was-
B team is in B for Brett, right?
What's that?
B team is in B for Brett, right?
B
B
team.
B team.
You're the B team.
No, it's not the B team. That is definitely the A team.
Yeah.
He comes in here and everything goes so smoothly. It's around here. The things just go awry. So
All right.
thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so next under new business, we have a recommendation to the ZBA. This is regarding 1900 Union Street / 1854 Union Street. That's for a lot line adjustment between those two properties, and it's going to require an area variance for the fence that's existing fence and an existing accessory structure in the front yard, or will be a front yard of 1854 Union Street, based on this recommendation. So as always, I don't know if we have one of the applicants here. That's Mr. Foreman, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't need to come up, but if you want to, you're welcome to. Everything was included in the packet, including the ZBA documentation provided by the applicant. I believe the ZBA meeting is September 20th, if I recall, somewhere in there. Is it 20th? Yeah. But anyway, it will be the September ZBA meeting based on our action tonight. Is that correct, Laura?
Yes.
So, all right, so it'll be based on that tonight. Project lead here is Ms. Gold, and we have the denial letter. So we could start out, if there's anything new that we want to talk about, or we want to get right into the denial letter. Ms. Gold, I guess I'll leave that to you. I'll ask the questions whenever you're ready.
Don't have. But, basically, the issue comes about because the lot line adjustment makes it a through lot. And we discourage that normally. However, in this case, the property to be conveyed pretty much functions as part of Mr. Foreman's backyard as it is. And it faces state highway and has restrictions there too because the state, I don't see the state ever allowing a curb cut. And actually, there's restrictions on what can be built for like 40 feet anyway. So instead of being part of Mr. Foreman's backyard, this lot adjustment will result in more of the land being the backyard of his next door neighbor. So to me, there's really not an effect on the comprehensive plan. It's already serving his backyard. It's just making a second through lot. And from a real estate perspective, the way I learned it from my father, lots with odd lines that are hard to follow can be more difficult to sell, and it can make for problems between the neighbors involved. So I think the through lot in this case is actually in the best interest of the town and the neighbors. And I really don't see it affecting the comprehensive plan because it's serving his backyard now and it will continue to serve his backyard.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask the questions and we can fill in the details, all right? So 3 questions we need to ask for our recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals is, sorry, let me back up a moment. It says section 220-4 defines through lots as having 2 front yards or 2 fronts or frontages. As proposed, the lot line adjustment will result in 1854 Union Street becoming a through lot as is oriented between Union Street and New York Route 7. Section 220-18A 2 states that accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard of any lot. So as proposed, the garage would be located in the front yard between the house and New York State Route 7. Therefore, a variance from this section is required. And section 220-25B1A states that for fences located in the front yard and side yard, the maximum height shall be 4 feet. As proposed, the 6-foot-high fence would be located in the front yard between the house and New York State Route 7. Therefore, a 2-foot height variance from this section is required. So by modifying the lot lines, it would invoke these area variances to be required. So we need to make our recommendation on that. So for the recommendation, Ms. Gold, effect on a comprehensive plan, you recommend your input?
I don't think there really is one. The property use isn't changing. The buildings and the fence are already there. It's just going to result in more reasonable lot lines,
Yep, so the
consistent with town code.
recommendation is it has no effect on the comprehensive plan. All those who agree with that signify by saying aye.
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 Any disagree or oppose that? Okay, it's no effect on comprehensive plan. Suitability of use for the area proposed. Ms. Gold?
I believe it's suitable. As I said, it will just make the lot more, the adjusted lot more compatible and consistent with the town code in the first place.
Okay, I think I'll add a couple things to that. So yes, it does makes lot at 1854 Union Street dimensionally compliant with the R1 zoning district. And it also has no impact on neighbors because it's between Union and Route 7. I don't view it as precedent setting personally because of the unique location between major arterials. I believe Union Street's pretty heavily traveled also. So I feel it's a unique situation. It will result in more regular lot line shape, which is something that is in the comprehensive plan versus irregular shape that would be introduced if we were to allow or recommend that the applicant, leave a strip of land along the rear of 1854. So I think that would be undesirable, and I think the best alternative is to basically have this lot line adjustment as shown. And so I think it's the best alternative.
Yeah, we go from one lot with basically 5 sides to 2 lots of normal dimensions.
Okay. Is there anything else that anybody could think of as far as suitable, which makes it suitable, this recommendation?
I would also note that the portion along Route 7 is actually pretty much wooded, so you're not going to see anything from there anyway. And both neighbors have indicated that they trust the other to maintain their wooded land.
Okay. All right, so the recommendation is that it's suitable, this, for the area variances, and our recommendation, suitability of use is all those that concur signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone oppose or have any other additional comments? Okay, so it's suitable. And finally, the recommendation to the ZBA, Ms. Gold.
And I would recommend that they approve it.
Recommendation is that the zoning board grant the variances. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any comments? Okay, so we've made our recommendation. It'll go forward, we document it, we'll review it, and it'll go forward to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We obviously support this project, this lot line adjustment. All right, you have anything, Mr. Foreman, at all? Mr. We appreciate you coming up and using the microphone. We can get you up there sooner or later, you know that.
Glenn Foreman, 1900 Union Street. I have a list of people on our new team here: Laura, Trish, Linda, Leslie, Kevin. So we're just Team Union Street. How about that? Anyway, my only comments would be that I like the straight lot line. As Leslie said, we love our trees on Union Street, and the new lot is actually the deepest on the triangle between Balltown, Crosstown, and Union, because he's grabbing my part, and he got a pretty good part, but nothing else goes quite so far between the two roads, 700 and something feet, maybe 780. Lastly, on the subject of two fronts, we certainly would prefer, that he get I can keep my 2 frontages, but, as Napoleon said, maybe it's not such a good idea to, fight on 2 fronts. I guess actually, it's more accurately, never fight on 2 fronts. But I think, I'm not going to fight my 2 fronts, but I think he'd certainly like to have just 1 front. That would be the only thing that we kind of laced into the
You can ask
discussion.
the
And
ZBA for.
if something happens on that, great. I don't think we'd be disappointed. We have a plan to hold back some land, maybe like the Kelts Farm on River Road, Kelts Farm Road. They've got to hold back. They planted a berm with a hill. I wouldn't cut down any of my mature trees to put a little berm in. I don't think that's worth anything. But I'm just very thankful for the team and for the help, and thank you very much for your time. I'm glad to be appearing on the 20th.
Great. Thank you for taking this route, and good luck at the ZBA meeting.
Thank you.
I'll just reiterate, those trees make Mr. Foreman's backyard amazingly tranquil, which you would not expect given its location between 2 major highways.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on. That's it for new business tonight. So we're up on discussion items, and we have one discussion on tonight, and that's 2890 River Road. And this is a sketch plan application for a 4-lot subdivision. And we know we have the applicant, Mr. Lucy, right? And Mr. Roman with him also tonight. You guys are welcome to come on up. And I'll turn it over. We got a couple project leads on to it, Mr. McPartland and Mr. Khan. So I'll let you guys take it from here. How's that?
Laura, would you like us to give a little summary of the site walk?
Sure.
Okay.
I figured, yeah.
And then I think we were going to also discuss, there was a meeting with the school district and some neighbors in this neighborhood, as you all know from our prior meeting discussion on this proposal. Really dealing with upstream stormwater impacts is of the utmost concern for the board. And I think anyone who's in this little watershed, if you will. But we, Jengis and I, were toured the site with Mr. Roman and Mr. Lucy last week. I'll just offer my, initial observations. I think I noticed that traveling along Seneca, there's a little bit less of a slope on either side of Seneca. You can tell that there's a gentle grade toward the very large wetlands on this parcel under consideration, 2890 River Road. However, it just seems as though this wetlands is somewhat of a collector for water all the way up to Iroquois and Rosendale schools. And a lot of it does seem to travel through one of your neighbors' backyards, I believe the Tiberios. You can clearly see there's some type of a channel behind their house. I think it's 6 Seneca. And basically, it would appear as though in peak runoff events, Jengis might be able to speak to this better, having visited the site again today, you get some water streaming over the street because there is no catchment basin or collection infrastructure at the low point. But that being said, I'll just conclude my comments in saying that we did have an opportunity to walk a good portion of the site. It is thickly wooded, especially in the areas around the wetlands. I think we did in starting our site walk near the cul-de-sac and then making our way along the path toward the River Road Park, a very nice feature which the applicant intends to maintain and perhaps improve. We noted that there is a nice high dry area where one of the homes, lot number 4 in the drawing before you, is proposed. And also along the way, we identified, I think, some trees that the tree council might like to save. There's definitely some trees, I think, of value that can be preserved outside the limits of clearing. And then we made our way along River Road and to the existing home proposed to be demolished. Not much really of note. I didn't even want to venture inside the home. It would appear as though it's been vacant for some time and fallen into a complete state of disrepair. So just want to thank you again for the site walk, and those are my basic observations. I'll let Jengis.
Yeah,
say more.
and in addition to what Patrick said, and again, thanks for being there and walking with us. I'm glad to see. It's too bad we don't have it with us, but I'm glad to see that you've got an updated drawing. Just some general impressions from the walk, and then I'll come back to the drawing. In terms of the drainage, I think Patrick and I, with the applicants, we would like to meet with, Matt Yeto and you and Clark, because this is speculative at this point, but I actually think that the wetlands area is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. And any stoppage of the drainage or challenges to the drainage is happening upstream. But I think we need to verify that. I went there today after the heavy rainfall, especially last night in the past 2 days. And the culvert that crosses River Road and empties onto the property, I forgot the address, but it's just right, just diagonally across from the Seneca corner. On the 6th of September, when we visited, there was no water coming out of the culvert. The pond was there. The pond height looked like it had been kind of stable for a very long time. There's water actually running out there now, but it's well under the diameter to flow the pipe. It doesn't look egregious in any way. So there is water getting there and there's water getting through. Meanwhile, in Seneca, there was puddling at those low points right by Mr. Viero's property and across the street from it, actually. It was an extensive amount like we've seen before in previous pictures or in videos, but obviously, there was no water flowing. There was just water settled. So there's something going on in that area, and I think we're going to need to work with the applicant and with the town to actually delineate where the responsibility lies in whatever mitigation we're going to need to have happen there. That's relative to the water and the flows there. And I'm also glad to see in this plot you actually have the footprints of at least 2 houses seem to have unique footprints. 2 are right now still generic. Right. So the one house that's closest to the wetland buffer, both Patrick and I felt that house was going to be a little bit of a challenge. It looks like it works on the map, but there's also a very steep grade there. Or I shouldn't say very steep grade. There's also a, noticeable grade.
There's a drop.
Right. There's a drop where that is. And so my comments to that, ultimately as an applicant, it's up to you for, the veracity of that house and the ability to be able to, to build it and have it, fulfill its function. But it was just getting awfully close to the buffer. And we did notice as we were walking close to the, in the southern side of this picture, close to where the house that's emanating now from the cul-de-sac is, as expected, as you begin to approach that wetland buffer, even on a dry day like last September 6th, the ground was becoming, soft, right? And so, yeah, we've got the 25-foot buffer that's indicated there, but I bet you that outside of that buffer, between that and the house, you're already dealing with some soft ground. So it's just something for you to consider and for us to consider as we go forward with this, right? I think that was just the second main thing. So yeah, that's all I had to it. I do like the fact that if everyone notices, so you put the driveway off of the cul-de-sac now, right? And
we made that adjustment. So previously, before it was a little bit prior to the cul-de-sac, so
Right.
it kind of pulled back just right adjacent to this walking path.
right,
Do me a favor, just introduce yourselves for the record,
Yeah.
please.
So I am Michael Roman, and with
Lucy.
we're both kind of co-developing this, and I actually kind of put together a site plan that reflects some of the things that we talked about, and I also have a couple other slides that just kind of has some of the photos, which I was pointing out to you because as you were talking, we can just show the rest of the board kind of what these were taken on the 6th, as you said. If you don't have anything else, I'll just kind of go through some things that I
I think
had.
that's all I had.
Yes, I had one
Otherwise, just an
question
open
regarding
conversation
the
with you
change
guys.
of the house, as Mr. Khan stated. So I guess that'd be lot number 3. Yeah, lot 3. Is there a walkout considered there? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so the thoughts is we got the 3 houses on River. This primarily being the one that I'm looking to acquire, and then the one over here is Ryan's. So these right now are just kind of standard footprint. This represents these two 1,500 square foot footprint, not the size of the house. So that's essentially what we're looking at as far as a footprint size on the ground floor. They could be a single story, it could be 2 stories. This one here is representing about 2,000 square foot house. The idea for this is for a side entry on the garage. Given the fact of the grade, I'll show you some photos through here. We're looking at this as being a good opportunity for a walkout potentially. So really getting a opportunity with a basement kind of walkout and some patio and stuff of that nature. We'll probably look to cut this back a little bit and work this grading out, but this would be an opportunity for a walkout there. This hatch area indicates that 25-foot buffer all the way around, and then this is the area of that wetlands which has been delineated. If you can just pull back a little bit, Laura. So as we mentioned over here, this is the house that Ryan's going to occupy for himself. The driveway has been shifted off to the cul-de-sac, kind of pulling in. The intent is to basically have this 2-story house here with a garage at the back, and this could be a future secondary garage as well. So we're just showing that. Not necessarily if that's going to be built right away. I think it's going to be something he considers, but depending on price. And this right here is that walking path currently, which is actually quite well done with stone dust. Could use a little bit of clearing just with the trees and stuff, which we would do and we would maintain. And I think it's important for this whole area of the community, but even for ourselves as well, so we can get to the park. The area here that you can see, I'm showing, this is the area of clearing. And I guess the thing I really want to emphasize is that we're showing that as the area of clearing, but if there's trees that are substantially worth keeping, we're gonna maintain. I think there's in the middle part, it's a little scruffy in some areas, not really healthy. But really along river, and I'll show you some of the photos, really we're going to keep all of that. There's some really nice, healthy trees. So if we're showing clearing here, but there's some nice trees, the intent is for those to stay. And I know we talked about too on site is really with the tree council kind of going through to look what's on site and get input from them, which I know you guys have done on Empire. I looked at the documents as well there. So we'll do that. But right now we're just kind of showing the idea of that area for clearing. Any questions?
Just two more points to add since we've gotten there. I was going to bring it up later, but it's okay now. Obviously, the property right next door is the park, River Road Park.
Yep.
So we'll need to ensure that there is the appropriate buffer, tree-lined buffer with River Road Park, right?
Yep.
And both Mr. McPart, if we could go back to the houses on River Road concerning the curb cuts, we know that shared driveways are not something that the planning board normally recommends or should recommend. But if there were a shared connecting driveway option to reduce the curb cuts on River Road to just one, maybe the existing one, right? I think that is
Yeah,
something that we could consider.
You could see here, I left the existing house here, just to get
Yep.
an idea of kind of where we were walking. That was that back deck, and I'll reference
Yep.
this with some of our photos. But if there's a situation, it's potential that this could be a shared driveway, something.
Well, that way, or you can actually have a strip that's running parallel, sort of somewhat parallel to River Road, right?
Yeah, personally, I don't
Oh,
like that.
you're
I'll
saying
be honest with you.
coming in and-
I think
yeah.
that'd be pretty ugly personally, along the front yards, having a shared driveway like that. I think we should wait when the county gives the input about, site distances and whether there's concerns with the curb cuts. We should take it from there after county input,
Sure. I mean, I'm fairly confident that the 3 curb cuts would work because it's a fairly straight stretch
Line of sight.
on River Road.
Great visibility.
The line of sight is great, right? But it was just a consideration to, if there was a reason to minimize the curb cuts.
Is there thoughts for, accessory structures? Obviously, looks like lot number 4 can handle some future, especially with the potential garage that's shown there.
Yeah.
But for lot number 3, that could be, with the topo lines and the buffer there. I mean, that's not going to be a built-in pool in the backyard there someday.
No, she can use my pool.
Yeah. Okay. So
We're not
that's
doing a pool.
that's
So
a
the
tough
intent
one.
is, I can fully say is, maybe like a small shed kind of thing, but really at the end, the thought is this is a bigger garage that can be utilized for some of this stuff. It's my sister's single mom, so as far as having stuff all around the house, she'll end up probably having someone, doing lawn and snow removal and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's not as important. Pretty comfortable with understanding some of the grades and what we can achieve there. I think that would be the focus as opposed to a secondary structure. Whereas in Ryan, definitely coming out of the gate, something that he's interested. But again, sizable lot, very dense in that area. Highest point on the site makes more sense.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's a challenge that you'll have to solve on the house on River Road, right? I mean, it's highly right. The softness of the ground and the wetland doesn't end with our drawn in 25-foot buffer, right?
Yep.
So I would anticipate that even if you're doing a walkout, you could be walking out onto soft ground.
Yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely. I think it's something
Yeah.
we want to look at. Soil conditions are tough, and
Yep.
regardless of how we're doing it with the foundations or dam proofing and stuff, it's all stuff that we'll have to work into design and proper mitigation around
Yeah.
the foundation and internally inside the basement as well. So
So again, I think the critical summary is what degree of water mitigation will the applicant have to take on as a responsibility? And I think we do need a little bit of a larger working meeting with the key parties to better understand that.
Sure, yeah. At the last meeting, we discussed upstream and downstream analysis, which is typical of water challenge subdivisions. We have a couple of upstream studies that we can provide the applicant with. I know Clark's been reaching out to TDEs to try and gather quotes, but one of the things we wanted to say is, okay, like for upstream, have Mr. Lucy's engineer review, say the Iroquois drainage study. Hopefully that would capture a good part of the water that's coming to this parcel. And then Joel Bezoin also offered his Campo Court drainage study, which is also in the subwater drainage shed. So I think one of the things we're thinking is kind of collect the data that's out there and kind of summarize or see what's missing for upstream, and then downstream may be very simple, just see where the water's going and how much is going downstream, something like that. But I think getting a meeting scheduled is a good idea, because we do want to get that TDE on board. The drainage is, I think, probably number one on this subdivision. And so we want to tackle that with a lot of engineering.
As far as the TDE goes, so what would happen is you would provide that information to the applicant's engineer. The applicant engineer is going to have something to start with before the TDE can, actually start doing something, right?
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So we just want to get the TDE like involved in the meeting so they kind
Okay.
of know what's going on when they're reviewing
Gotcha.
things.
That makes sense.
Yep,
But yeah,
I'm up this
it
week.
would be, the analysis would be on Mr. Lucy's engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I just didn't want them starting to review stuff at the applicant's expense until the applicant's got something, their first cut at least.
Yeah, and today's kind of more of an open conversation.
Yeah.
We're in the process. I'm
Right.
saying that we got to submit calculations.
But it's a good point regarding the meeting, because obviously it would help everybody if they understand a little bit of the history and the town's position. So,
Yeah, and I actually didn't receive the videos, so they weren't provided for the public comment tonight, but I did hear from the Tiberios that they took a video at night of that site. So I don't know if there was a difference between the night and the day. Like my yard was a giant pool this morning. But they have a video from the nighttime if you guys are interested in seeing
Huh.
that.
yeah, it was quite a bit of water. Was it it was a couple inches?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
a,
last night it was like a two-hour window. It's pretty-
Yeah, because I know that my pool needed water and it don't need water any longer.
You're all set.
mine as well. Mhm. And my yard does not need water anymore
Just
either.
needs pH down now.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's bad.
I mean, and the aftermath there tonight is you've got puddling definitely in the two sides of Seneca. But that culvert that runs off the River Road just seems to be, conveying water.
Yeah, and I
Fairly
have,
well.
if you flip through, I can show you kind of, I don't know if people
Okay.
are familiar with on the other side of River Road.
Mhm.
It's a pretty big
Where's the,
culvert.
when the water comes, Tiberios, it comes out, does it go across the road into this area and then connect to the
You know,
culvert?
it's funny because, yeah, it kind of comes across and lays across. They actually, I pointed out when we were on site, they actually have a void that dips down that cuts back into this wetland over in here.
Yep.
If you were to get that up flush, again, water goes down, but it sheathes, especially at high volumes. So there's actually like a little trench that kicks it back there a little bit. And
Yeah.
and it sits there and it lays between the two sides of the road.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing is that there seems
So-
to be one catch basin too little on
Urban.
Seneca.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the engineering analysis would hopefully really show us what's going on there.
Yeah.
I do, if we're still talking water though, I do know that the engineer is going to have to look at this because this is a current kind of open drainage that's proposing to be filled with this subdivision.
Yeah, there'll be a culvert pipe through there.
Yeah. But I think, they're going to have to show the sizing of it and based on, again, like those upstream studies to make sure that it's okay to mess with that drainage
Yeah.
channel.
Absolutely.
Sadly, once you change something, it doesn't always work as good as what was there. But hopefully we can make
Well, I
it
think-
better.
Well,
I think it can really do
that comment,
better
I
because-
think personally might encapsulate the active flows prior to and after the construction of this
Second
cul-de-sac.
part of Seneca.
I mean, those aerial photos, which this board saw, are quite telling, from my opinion. I mean, and that's a completely unprofessional assessment of, based on a few aerial photos. But it would seem that, as Jengus said, when this cul-de-sac went in, we can already see that there's some water streaming down the cul-de-sac to the low point in Seneca Road, and there's only a catchment basin on one side of that road. So the northern side of Seneca Road does not have a catchment basin to grab any water streaming off down driveways and from the cul-de-sac to
Yeah.
the low point in Seneca Road.
And this is why it's probably good to have an engineering meeting, because I know these guys weren't involved, but the engineering and the supervisor's office and a fair number of individuals in the town of Niskuna have been meeting about this drainage issue on a semi-regular basis for almost a year.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's an intentional design for the cul-de-sac. And there's some reasons why that is true. Like, if you put a catch basin and the elevation is already too low, it's just gonna the water will
there's a
just back up
Yeah.
and
really
come
good
out.
invert that comes across the
Yeah.
road, which I'll show you in one of the photos.
Yeah, so
There's
we
a lot
definitely need to
volume.
understand
Yeah, so
that.
I'm
We
just
need to
saying-
understand that better, because right now
Yeah.
the design looks like if it was intended for all the
I'm
water
not
to
sure
actually
it
run
was
down
missed.
Seneca.
I think that's why you need to have the engineering,
Yeah.
because I mean, if you go back and look, I know that the engineering department doesn't love the previous subdivision, but there are reasons why it is.
Yeah,
like
and I
that.
think it's understanding those
Yeah.
reasons is key. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
And I think we're getting far more rain than when Seneca was developed.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely.
I don't think the town planned for the kind of rainfalls we're getting.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think an engineering meeting would be very good, so everybody can kind of understand where that is happening.
And, just to kind of bring that into fuller perspective as it relates to this application for a 4-lot subdivision, I think we often, with an area such as this that's located near some town recreation facilities in a desirable neighborhood, and also sort of an issue area as it relates to stormwater, we're presented with some opportunities to capture some easements for conservation, for recreation, and possibly even some improvements in the way of the town infrastructure. So kind of just want to kind of put it out there that beyond any potential improvements to the overall drainage of this area, we have also discussed the maintenance of this path. I think CAC likes the idea of the path becoming even more of an official multi-use path to the River Road Park. And then I noticed in our agenda notes this evening that it's on the Complete Streets radar to grab a easement along River Road for the established potential for future sidewalk along River Road. So a lot of potential benefits to the town, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. If we can kind of, the engineering can kind of be done, and we can see a line of sight to a subdivision that improves our overall stormwater issue. Certainly, I think there's potential here, and but I think also, given that we're just talking about a minor subdivision, at some point prior to having all of this work done, all of this engineering work done, the applicant's going to have to evaluate, what's feasible, and we before we get too far along in this process, we as a board also have to evaluate, what is a sketch plan that we can actually that we're actually comfortable with too. And I was hoping at some point we could also today talk a little about property lines as it relates to the wetlands and a proposed conservation easement or some kind of something written in, some language written into the deed about the corner of Seneca and River Road. I think when we were first getting into this, we were thinking maybe that the wetlands, there might need to be some work performed, maintenance performed on a culvert in the wetlands, but that may actually not be the case. We don't really know, but I think actually, as we kind of come full circle, it might make the most sense to kind of keep the property lines as they are, as opposed to any, land becoming property of the town. That's just kind of where I see us right now, though.
There could be some like maintenance agreements or easements, right? Where if they have to get in there to clean or do something to town, that could be something that could be considered, right? Based on what the needs of highway and water and sewer are, of course.
Yeah, I think hopefully that would come out with some of the engineering studies, but we right now have a sewer easement in place. But what we were talking about is that a lot of time people have said, well, is the wetland working or is it not working? And do you need to go in there and kind of dredge it out? And one, we don't really know, but two, we can't because it's private property. So if the engineering study does show that that's a drainage channel that should be regularly maintained, then it could be proposed to the town as a potentially public easement, or it could just be something that the applicant has to maintain over time. That'd be something, I guess, that we would work out.
Yeah, I think we could definitely talk about a easement for maintenance through here. As far as like us maintaining it, I think that there's a lot of concerns I would have in that sense, just because of how often does it get done? Also being the municipality, getting through Army Corps approvals and stuff is a lot easier from a municipality standpoint. But I think really at the end of the day with this, and again, just want to be clear, this is the easement Laura's talking about. This right here is the what we have depicted in our survey that comes underneath River Road to that culvert. I'll show you.
Yep.
With trenching, you can think about this as you could sit here and we'll go through this on our report. Getting the water into this area and laying here and eventually pushing out essentially is a holding area for where all this water is. We're not going to be able to solve where this water is coming upstream. I'm just going to be honest with you. We're not going to be able to do it. It's coming here. What we can best do is try to get it into this area, hold it for as long as that needs to be so we can get it across the street. Because, and I think Pat and Jenkins, you saw the size of that. Once it gets to that point, it releases. And you can see too on the rocks, the level, how that water gets. So it doesn't get to a point where it's causing an overflow, and we'll show that in the analysis, where it downstream is causing conflict. There was actually fish swimming in it. So that tells me it sits there for a while as opposed to varying up and down as far as water levels go.
Yeah, right now, I think I would say that the conveyance of water across the wetlands and into then the man-made culvert goes across the street. That seems to be working. The question is it going to work that way all the time? Does it work that way all the time?
Right.
And what relationship does that have then again to the upstream, right?
Yeah.
And we got to look at those calculations because we're putting the investment in too. So they're having issues over here. We got to ensure that we're not going to have issues come back up into here or anything. So, but we're working with Mike from Engineering Ventures. Does a lot of stuff up in the parks. So the one thing that I will say for flip the page here is, we did put the FOIL request in. I know there's time. If we can get information from you guys, that would help us do our due diligence to move things along. I know there's some stuff that I can kind of get off of some other previous meetings online and stuff. But again, as much information that we can get would be helpful, especially prior to the meeting with the engineers on site and the
I don't
town
think there should
reviewer.
be a need for a FOIL request.
Yeah,
I
so
submitted it, but
so we had this discussion. I think it was
So you 100% have to foil the drainage study for Iroquois. Like, we are not able to give that.
No,
away
I'm
without
sorry.
FOIL.
So let's be clear what needs to be foiled. So is it the draining study for Iroquois that you're concerned that you're looking for, or is it the draining study that we referenced for the Brett's last place? What was that, Antonio? The Paulsonelli.
Yeah, that one's available online. and
that one I
won't be
saw.
foiled.
I
Okay.
put the request in for Iroquois.
Oh yeah, for Iroquois you're gonna have to foil that
So,
for
yep.
sure. Yeah, I
Right.
didn't
And
fully
and I know
understand that
everyone's
when we
busy,
met.
but they're telling me it's not, to the end of September, but I need that information. That's an important piece to
No,
our
no,
house.
understood, but I mean, that FOIL can only be responded to by the
Yep,
Board of
and it has
Education.
been, it was
right?
submitted about a week ago. So,
Yeah, we'll work on that.
but if you could, that'd be phenomenal. And then, we'll definitely get the reviewer on board. I think that's important. The tree council, do the walk. And, as we know, Laura, we're on the holding of removing that house. As we go through this process and we figure out seeker, we would like to get that down as soon as possible. I think it's just beneficial at this point. But we'll look for you guys to make a recommendation on that. So I just want to mention that. If you could just I just wanted to show just some quick photos. So these were photos that we were taking. This right here. So this is on the existing house, standing on the deck, looking back. It's hard to see on this, and we can definitely follow up, but you get a sense where it drops down in here a little bit at the back part. So that's really looking into this area right in here. You go to the next one, Laura. This is looking at the side, kind of into the wetlands, and that's the bigger trees that we were looking at. I think for the most part, that one could stay. Root structure is important too with establishing some of the terrain.
Yeah, I
that's there,
mean, I
too.
think
So we don't want to start
practically-
ripping everything out.
Yeah, practically we'd consider it, and that's the pine, right? I think.
Yeah.
I think that pine may have to end up coming out if there's a house
But
that's gonna go there.
we'll see. It's too bad there wasn't more of them. So this one actually here is what I like about it is really, this is looking at the existing house, looking out across River Road. You can see a lot of these existing trees, which are going to remain. So it's a nice buffer along River Road. So that's all going to stay there. There'll probably have to be some maintenance with National Grid and stuff, which they actually did not too long ago. But so just showing, again, if we're showing the extent of clearing and we see stuff like this, the intent is for it to remain. And then this is the culvert that I talked about a couple times here across the street. Pretty big volume that can come through this pipe. This right here, for the most part, what you see here is where the water usually stays. It does vary a little bit. You can see that sediment on the rocks, but like I said, there's actually fish living in that. So that tells me that it essentially does not drain down, and it's pretty consistent.
Which side of River Road is that?
So this is on the opposite
The
side
north-
of
the
River
north
Road,
side.
right over
North
here,
side of River,
right
yeah.
across from the pipe.
Okay.
It's actually right on a property's, very sloping driveway.
Yeah.
And that, and that pipe is draining water today.
When we were there was nothing. I think it's probably 24 inch. And this is, it's hard to see, but this is the pedestrian path that the neighbors kind of put in. It's all stone dust. Again, I think with cleaning this up, putting a little more stone dust down, and so it kind of nice organic path. It's actually kind of nice, meanders around a little bit. Clean up the trees, cut up some of the canopies a little bit. I think it'd be a great opportunity, and we're definitely interested in doing that. So
Yeah.
to keep it organic, natural, maybe it could make it a little bit wider, so that way two people can walk, or someone's come by with their dog, which we actually saw that day. So
It's a very short path, but it does
Yeah.
give direct access to
Yeah.
any resident on Seneca
and we
or on
can clean it
Owasco,
up, but
straight into the park.
as long as we kind of come into the park right here, because this really is right now where the basketball court is. So you really arrive right at that point. And I think that's it right there.
Yep.
So just
Could I
recap.
just ask, I'm sorry, I missed last week's meeting, the gore, the strip to the northeast, is that getting merged into a lot? On the other side of
This one?
No,
Oh.
over there.
Oh, so this right here is, honestly, there's not much we're going to do with this. Originally, on one of the submissions, we had a house here. It's just not going to work. So, we're fine, even putting in the deed that nothing's going to be built here. Okay, because really at the end, this is all wetlands. To
Whose deed will that get merged into?
this right here is part of this lot, lot 3.
That's lot 4.
Yep,
Three.
currently.
Lot
Lot
three.
3.
Yeah.
Yep, the property line's right here. So this is all part of that. This is all wetlands. If you were to build, you're really in this area, but it drops off quite significant. So there's a lot of fill.
Yeah.
And really at the end of the day, when the house can be built, you're going to be looking right into the back. You get no backyard. So
So you've already represented to us that you're going to take occupancy of 3, right?
correct.
So you have to maintain that strip?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to
Yeah.
mow it.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And they're doing it now. I don't know if we would go this far back. I think it'd be nice to kind of keep it. It's actually quite nice when you come into here. So I think what you
Mhm.
see there now is the intent of what we would make.
Yeah. And I guess that's another comment, is that when you take in the on-the-ground visual of the entire parcel, Yeah, we're gonna do quite a bit of disturbance where the house coming out the cul-de-sac is, and a little bit more, commensurate disturbance up for the 300 River Road. But most of that greenery definitely in the wetlands and at the corner of Seneca and River
Stays.
is gonna stay.
Yeah, I
Right,
think that's a
which-
real
yeah.
benefit to, I think Patrick had said put a conservation easement on
Right.
there.
Yep.
I don't actually think they would need to mow it, Mr. Scrabatennis, because I think at that point, the town just mows within its right of way, what it needs, and hopefully the applicant would just maintain that as forest.
Appears
Yeah,
to be
'cause-
mowed now. I mean, according to Google Maps, it's a well-managed site, at least in the buffer.
Yeah, no, it is. And if
So who
there's some
does that
trees
work
and
now?
growth, the neighbors do. One of the neighbors do, correct? Yeah.
Well, on this side, like on this side of Seneca?
Right here,
Mhm.
Right here?
up in this area.
Take a look.
Yeah, it's pretty. It looks
Seems to
manicured
be
and mowed.
maintained.
And then they just dump the clippings in here. It's up in this area. But again, I think if we're getting some trees growing and sprouting, I mean, we want to leave that so it looks kind of natural a little bit. But, maybe along the street edge, just clean it up and mow it. I have a similar situation where I live, and I tend to kind of just go up there a little bit, hold it back. But otherwise, like Laura said, eventually, once or twice a year, the town comes by and as much as they can reach, they kind of clean up.
It appears to be edged. right?
Yeah, no, it is kind of clever. And I think that's nice as you kind of come in, because on the other side, you got the sign there with a little bit of landscaping around it for it says Seneca, so.
What are the rights on that side where the monument, where the sign is for the development? Is it-
I believe that sign is on private property, even though it's a subdivision
Okay.
sign.
All right. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really now just, for me, if we get past the drainage and we understand it and we're able to get to a better state within what's the rights and responsibilities of the applicant versus the rights and responsibilities of the town or someone else like the school district, right? When, I think we need to sort that out. But other than that, I think, I mean, that's a big one, it's huge. But then beyond that, I think everything else is straightforwardly workable.
Has an as-built been done, if I don't know, of Iroquois, just as far as compared what was proposed on drawings? I mean, that's something that might want to be considered as well, just to ensure that things were properly done and some of the chambers are installed and stuff, something to consider.
I don't know if they're done yet.
Yeah.
I
I'm not
haven't
sure.
seen
know
any
they're
as-built. Yeah,
Getting there,
yeah.
something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, we do know the construction is still going on.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
Yep.
and I don't think the board I don't have any line of sight into what happened there, what was the previous condition, I mean, how different is the final from the previous, et cetera. Do you know the
Well,
previous?
Yeah, so I mean, the school is under the same condition as the town in which, because it's a statewide condition, in which when they make additional impervious surface, they have to use engineering calculations to show that they're not making the water situation worse.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've got a SWIP in place that shows with engineering calculations that they're not making the water situation worse. What I think the benefit is of foiling that is that they will show input and output. So the applicant can understand what the output is that's coming towards this property, and then possibly looking at Campo Court and a couple other areas, just to understand how much water is coming there is important for when we're looking at a subdivision.
Do you vote, offhand, well, I guess it's probably on here. What is the size of the wetland area?
It's about 2.14 acres.
Okay.
The site is 5.26. The wetlands is 2.14.
In terms of, holding capacity, that sounds quite large.
There's a lot of capacity, and let's be honest, like at the time, again, no one here was around when this was all done, but this probably was not dredged out. It probably just was natural as a byproduct of this being owned by someone else. But that's what I'm saying. I think at the end of the day, if this is dredged out, there's a lot of capacity here. And once it's here, it has enough to go across the street. I definitely know that just from experience and observing that. Calculations will show that. And you saw today too, we had a tremendous amount of rain last night and it still was moving through there. So if we can get it to this area and then it goes across the street and it doesn't affect the downstream, then I think it helps the neighbors.
That's the goal.
Well, Patrice,
Circle.
we were spending some of the town and applicants' money too on our site walk. just kind of hypothetically speaking.
Mhm.
Dredging alone is an expensive proposition.
Yeah.
But, we were also saying, it's a shame that there isn't a culvert under the low point in Seneca Road. And, who knows what really is required to convey stormwater from one side of Seneca to the other and deal with whatever impacts there have been to the Tiberios that aren't self-created.
Yeah. There's a question in my mind whether the upstream water is effectively getting conveyed into this wetland area.
And dredge is probably not the best word. Usually when you see these along River Road where they're clearing
Mhm.
out those, it's more of that nature in a sense.
Yeah. If we're close to the end, there's just one strange point I wanted to bring up. We noticed in the wetlands at the River Road boundary, I guess it was National Grid that did some tree cutting.
Yeah.
And, the stumps are there, the cut trunks are there. Do they have responsibility for removing those, or did they just leave it? Does anybody know?
I don't know what the National Grid responsibilities are.
Yeah, I live on Whitmire, so they just did my street and they cleaned most of it up, except for one part that I said, hey, that looks terrible. And that's
Yeah.
because I asked, they left that there. But otherwise, they cleaned most
Okay.
of it up.
It's just something to keep in mind. I mean, I would expect that at some point they would come and remove at least what was cut. I'm not sure about stump removal, but
Yeah, they don't do stumps, but usually they
Yeah.
had a chipper with them and they
Yeah.
were chipping.
There
it.
are some larger
Yeah.
caliber size that left, but perhaps because it's a vacant lot or not really utilized, they're just dumping it there.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have to.
I
I
don't know
think
how that
they
goes.
do a lot because people call them or it's like general
Yeah.
acceptable practice. But I can tell you they've left stumps like 11, 15 feet tall for us, the town of Niskuna, to take care of before.
Really? Well,
Maybe they don't realize it's private land, though.
No, they realize that.
National
You mean,
Grid.
where you're talking for
yeah,
Jengus?
yeah, we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
now.
that's a
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about, the money. Right, it's contractor, they got an agreement and the more, less they have to take, the more they make, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Pick
like I
your battles
said,
with them.
yeah, the stumps were, I don't think, from what I recall, the stumps were not, egregiously tall stumps, but it's really the cut trunks were just there.
There.
You never know what a phone call as a private landowner to National Grid might accomplish.
Mhm.
Sometimes a squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah, I think they leave the tall stuff in the town right of way, kind of because they can. But I think they usually pick up on private property.
I want to give the applicant a little direction here. I think they're already kind of full steam ahead in terms of putting their engineer DeSalt to work and trying to obtain whatever previous studies they can about upstream stormwater. But pretty soon here, if we get a TDE engaged, we're getting to a point where we really need to grant sketch plan approval before this can move forward any further. So, and
You can't grant,
just keeping in mind,
you can't grant sketch plan approval until we have, we've requested information or at least a sign off from the property owner on that small strip because
Oh,
they don't
thank
have
you
the
for-
ability to act on behalf of that property owner and don't own it yet.
yeah, but I thought we had a
Well,
contract for
yeah.
sale. Is
We have
that
a
not?
That's not
contract for
sufficient
sale.
because that can fall through at any point in time. So you either
Well-
have to have the current owner, as we indicated, sign off on it or the sale has to go through.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you,
Yeah.
Elena.
Yeah, the digital signature is fine, right?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah,
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 okay.
that's
Yeah, it's
better to do that than to
The
wait
deed thing.
for whatever
Yep.
you're waiting on with the county.
okay.
Um,
The direction you were given, Patrick.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm just putting it out there because, I know that we still have to call for a public hearing, make a secret determination before this process can really kick off and we can do detailed engineering. So I want to leave, the applicants, I think, been pretty on top of making some of the changes we suggested, revisions to the site plan, but I want to give them any direction that board members might have in terms of layout, size of homes, number of homes, the arrangement, potential for a sidewalk easement, how we'd like to structure the, I mean, I think you've heard pretty clear direction on some kind of a maintenance agreement or maintenance easement that's quite a bit larger than the existing easement for the town of Niskuna in your wetland area. Laura, I know the CAC hasn't done their full review, but
They looked
what
at it.
what
yeah.
are there any takeaways from their initial review that we haven't covered?
No, I thought you covered them. They were very excited about the connection to the park and concerned about the drainage. And my only kind of tag on to that, I think direction is important. I know for sketch plan though, I think it would be important for the board to at least have comfort that the stormwater can be handled. And I don't know what the board needs to have comfort on that, but I think, you know, at least from my point of view, like the lot configuration and stuff looks okay if the storm drain stuff works, but at least having like some high level beginning understanding of how the storm drain might work would be what I would recommend prior to granting of the sketch plan approval.
Do you think that's something we can accomplish with the help of the engineering, water and sewer department, town Niskuna?
So my recommendation on that is that we get the information to the applicant as fast as possible and their engineer take a quick look at it and give us his initial take would be my recommendation on that.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, I think one of the, not knowing what we're going to learn until we have that meeting about the upstream, I think one minimal necessary condition is going to be whatever flows get generated from the disturbances to this property, they're going to have to get mitigated on this property, right? In other words, they can't roll out on the Seneca Road.
What's that?
They can't, water can't discharge onto Seneca Road.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Right, from our property.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just because of how the grading is now, it just kind of.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to solve that fairly straightforwardly.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of our easier tasks.
No, I agree with what you said, Ms. Robertson. So get some preliminary information we'll hold and get some, obviously the, either the title issue straightened out or a letter from the owner that's okay to represent on his behalf. And we'll keep moving forward.
And my thought is that it probably can be dealt with by engineering. The question is whether it's financially feasible for the development itself. And some engineering fixes can be very, very expensive.
Well, there's always the alternate too, right? We're showing 4 homes, right? There's 1 home existing. I think obviously you could tear a home down and build 1 home with very little engineering would be my assumption.
Yep.
And 2 more, 3 more, 4 more. So you could take it the other way. You can, if there is an issue, you could always, back off on a number of homes. I'm not saying that that's required.
I'm glad you we're kind of talking through kind of how the math works on that, because obviously impervious area created by 3 homes on a 5-acre lot can be 6-acre lot can be easily dealt with given the area you have. I think the much taller task here is this sort of unknown of what is coming down the hill from the school district and other areas into this basically 2-acre pond on your property.
Correct.
So we could be talking about a number that no amount of homes could be financially justified.
Right.
So I guess my open question is just what can we reasonably, what responsibilities can we reasonably put on the developer of a minor subdivision if it's determined that the only way to, safely and effectively convey the discharge is to raise the road and install new culvert pipe and dredge the wetlands. I mean, we're talking big numbers, I think.
Oh, I'd say,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's
can,
not,
can we reasonably?
that's not an option. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, just especially where I see numbers today. So it's just, and I don't even know if we can as private go into the towns right away and do road construction. I mean, there's a lot to that, just not even.
That's why the preliminary information is so important,
So-
I think.
Yeah.
You know, in order to do a sketch
Yeah.
plan, and that's what you guys are off to do,
Yeah.
so.
And,
That's
you know,
what
we've
you
had
want.
a lot of rain, and I don't, you know, I've been there, we walked through. I know it was kind of a dry couple days prior to that, but you don't see a tremendous amount of sand and water in that area of of the wetlands. I know we didn't go deep
Yeah.
into it, but we've looked at it. So from my standpoint, that's a little bit of a good feel because you don't see the water just sitting there and raising up.
Yeah.
So it is moving and discharging.
Yeah, I'm glad Patrick talked about what I would consider a scenario sitting on one end of the spectrum, right? I think let's have that engineering meeting where we understand the upstream flows better. And what I'm looking to get out of that meeting is, like I said, I think I have an understanding of what is the bare minimum that would need to happen without knowing what the upstream is. And then once we know what the upstream is, we'll have to work backwards and say, well, what additional needs to happen? And then we can have that discussion as to whose responsibility that is.
Yeah, because I think, you know, it's very possible that Seneca Road is the bottleneck in this, in the flow
Right.
of the management of stormwater. And really the only way to safely, you know, by the book, convey water from one side to the other is under the town road. And there, you know, therein lies the rub. That's a very expensive proposition right there.
And according to Laura, there's a reason why it looks the way it does and catch basins are the way.
Yeah,
they're
I
laid
believe
out there.
so, because in some of the meetings, the engineering department has pulled the previous subdivision drawings and looked at designs, and it wasn't like it was built not to spec. It is built per the approvals that were issued at the time.
And is it any coincidence that, you know, has the town received complaints prior to the Iroquois school construction?
I don't always get those. Elena's saying yes.
Okay.
I usually get complaints related to subdivision applications, not not construction. But yeah, it sounds like we have.
I mean, I strongly recommend all board members actually just go and drive down Seneca, go up into the cul-de-sac, maybe park there and just look at the road. You do scratch your head a little bit, Laura, as an engineering person, and say, gee, how come it looks like that?
I've heard people say that, but I know that the town has also researched that. So I just want to be clear that
And I'm waiting to hear.
That's
I'll
why
hold
we've
off
gotta-
comments like that again. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know that we can make assumptions about it. I think we should work on the upstream drainage and figure out what's happening and see what's going down to the property.
I have a question. I know that the school district does not have to bring anything before the planning board because it's considered a subdivision of the state itself.
Or the town, yeah.
So it doesn't need all the necessary approvals that other projects would. Does it at least have to go to the town engineering department?
It does not, no.
So they can do pretty much anything the state approves?
Well, they're subject to all the same rules under the state of New York, so they have to have regular SWIP inspections. It's just that all of that reporting and all of that design review and everything goes to the Department of Education and not the town of Niskayuna. But
Which is understaffed.
but they
I
don't.
know that unit very well.
Yeah, but they don't have any different standards. They're just not administered by us.
And I will say, as an architect, I do a lot of work with municipalities, of which sometimes they're governed underneath their own. And the detail that you guys maybe done, for example, on some of your projects here, is not done in a municipality in that sense.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's just-
I could almost.
It's how it's set up.
Yeah.
It's not right or wrong, but it tends to things not be as specifically looked at and questioned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly certain that their max runoff calculations were not based on a 95th percentile of 100-year rainfall.
Yeah, I mean, they have a stormwater management report. The applicant has foiled it. I will try and get that out to
Yep.
you guys as quickly
Yeah, we'll look
as
at it. We'll give
possible.
you.
Yeah.
So actually,
Input
so
onto
one
it.
procedural question. So the applicant's going to foil it. That's the applicant's information from his FOIL request and his patients. How do we get to see that?
An Elena question. Are we just allowed to share that with the planning
I
board?
can email.
With the planning board.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Planning board is a representative body of the town, yes.
Yeah, so we could just, I can just, it's a big file. What I can probably do is just set up a share file like I've been setting up with you guys and just put it in there.
I mean, once I, again, just a question, like, once I receive it, am I able to share it?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Right.
I can't control what you do with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was making sure,
Yeah.
because I gotta
But,
understand. like,
but,
flow
but to keep,
request.
but to keep it clean, I think the planning board should independently get that through channels that the planning board would normally follow.
Yeah, so I can.
I don't
send
think
that,
we should
yeah, as a
expect the
link to
applicant to
planning board.
provide that to us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay,
Very good.
all right.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? No, thank you guys for coming in tonight. We
Yeah,
appreciate it. It
the
was a good
opportunity. And
discussion.
again, if someone is interested in walking through it, just please reach out to talk to Laura Clark and we'll meet you there.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that's it for discussion items tonight. Reports, Laura, you have anything tonight for us? For Elena?
I don't have anything. Yep, nope.
No? Okay, how about you, Elena? Anything new?
Night.
No?
I knew on my end, other than Judge Powers, who had rendered the decision on BR Holdings, was appointed to the appellate division, so I don't know what, doesn't sound very good for us with respect to that, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, he went to the appellate
Yeah.
division. The appellate division would be deciding.
He followed the case.
No, he would, no, but I'm just saying that
Oh, he wouldn't preside over.
he can't preside over the, but I'm just saying, once, that's like saying somebody here going before the same board, you know what I mean? It's an image of
We understand.
a bias, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, all right, nothing under reports, commission, business. Anybody have any questions at all for Laura or anyone? Any discussion?
Oh, actually, I did have one thing. The 15th is the day that the early bird registration ends for the training.
At
I
Hudson
know I've
Valley?
heard a couple from you. I've got Chairman Walsh, I've got Mr. Drescher, maybe another one of you guys.
I signed up.
Oh, Patrick,
Yeah,
yeah.
you went last year.
But
That's
can,
that's when I go to.
but can you look at it? Because it's really good training, and if you need it, I highly recommend it.
Laura, just remind me the date again. I think it was a
October
conflict. for me.
20th.
Yeah, okay, no, that's a conflict for me.
You
It's
have
a Friday,
conflict?
right?
Okay, so maybe everybody's already
It's a
responded.
Friday.
I like to get you all scheduled if I can. So I'll be finalizing that and sending you guys your confirmation on Friday.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think unfortunately I'm going to be spending quality online time with online training.
Yeah, I mean, online works. It's just, I really recommend that in person. I think it's very nice. They've got case law updates, ethics, and a focus on tiny homes this year. So
Good. Okay, thank you, Laura. No other questions at all?
Good. I just hate driving over there.
yeah, it's a ways, but it's nice.
Yeah, I like it. No other questions?
Try different hang up, but
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Motion adjourned by Ms. Gold. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Good meeting.
Thank you.